You can control how early your elderberry will ripen based on how you prune them. If you live in a short season climate like I do, correct pruning strategy will mean the difference between berries ripening on time before winter and a crop failure. There are several reasons to prune elderberry. Number one is pest control. It controls mites and it helps with ease of harvest. You want to make sure that those clusters are within reach, and you want to make sure that you have nice big clusters instead of a whole bunch of tiny ones. You want to encourage the renewal of the right structures, branches, or shoots that will produce the best fruit. And the right methods of pruning will encourage beneficial insects to inhabit your elderberry bushes. For those reasons, I would argue that pruning is all but essential for any elderberry grower, whether you grow one bush or 40 acres. In this video, I'm going to show you how I prune for optimal production in Salmon Arm, British Columbia, which has a 130-day growing season, 130 frost-free days, and I live at 50.7 latitude. If you live somewhere with a longer growing season or at a more southerly latitude, you're going to do it a little bit different. Actually, you're going to do it quite different. But I'm going to show you the techniques that work well for a short growing season. If you live somewhere where you do not have a short growing season, in other words, that it's longer, any amount longer than my growing season, you are going to use a pruning technique called coppicing. So you're going to go along to every single one of these canes and you're going to cut it off right at the ground level every single year. That will give you the optimal protection against mites and other insects. It will force the plant to have bigger clusters because each one of the shoots will have a big cluster, and it will make the harvesting window, which is the number of weeks during the year in which it's producing flowers, it will be a smaller harvesting window, which is very handy. At this time, I can't really think of a good reason why you wouldn't use the coppicing method or coppicing method if you live in a climate where you have a long enough growing season. So if you don't live in a cool growing season like me, stop watching this video and just coppice your plants. But if you live in a short growing season, let's continue. The core essence of pruning elderberry, no matter what method or where you live or what variety of elderberry, is to achieve the right balance between pruning too much and too little. And if you prune just right, you're going to encourage the plant to produce the right kind of structures that will bear the best fruit in your growing season. So this video is about pruning American elderberry in a short-ish growing season like mine. So before we get started with the pruning, I have to explain some terminology to you. This here is a primocane. It is last year's growth. It grew all the way from the ground last year, and you'll notice it doesn't have any side branches. Just got these nice little buds. Getting a little late for pruning. These buds have already grown. Whoops. It might have a couple branches at the top. But basically, it's one straight solid shoot. That's a primocane. Now, this was a primocane last year. I pruned it off, and then each one of those buds grew into a little shoot. We call these shoots. And that shoot produced fruit, and it's quite little. So you'll see the primocane, no side branches. Second-year-old wood has these side branches, which are called shoots. We're about to get started pruning, but first I need to show you last year, this is where last year's pruning cut was. It's got a little tiny hole in that, and that's because a beneficial insect, in this case, looks like it's probably an aphid wasp. Pemphirodonidae is the family. And what I've done last year is when I pruned, this was the top bud, I left an extra 6 or 8 inches so that those beneficial insects, they could happily inhabit that. And before I prune, I go along and I cut these all off and I put them aside and make sure that they don't get mulched up by the mower. So I go through and I cut those off, I collect them, and put them in a basket over there. I have baskets of those by the end of the year, and then the field gets repopulated with thousands of beneficial insects. Often it's either aphid wasps in my experience, scarlet malachite beetles, and also various species of bees. In my fields, because of this, because I do this, almost every single one of these places where I did a pruning cut last year will have a beneficial insect home in it. So yeah, it benefits my field to protect these insects and give them this nice little 6-inch long home. So when I prune, I would like to end up with something that looks like this. It is a row of nothing but nice, strong primocanes that I've cut off to 1 or 2 nodes. And all of the older branches are removed. Using this pruning method, this is what my bushes look like in August. Yes, it looks shocking how much I cut them back, but no matter how hard you prune them back, they will bounce right back to size. Okay, so here you can see one nice good primocane and one, this was a nice good primocane last year and it grew 4 shoots. Now those 4 shoots, those are my best fruit producing branches. So by pruning it in this way, I encouraged the formation of lots of shoots like that. Now that's done. So this guy, we're going to completely get rid of it. And here it's a perfect example of a nice healthy primocane. We've got 1 node there, another node there, and then I could cut right above that node. I'm not gonna because I want to give a nice habitat for insects. I'm going to cut as high as possible. You need to look for any canes that are too small. I say any cane that's less than 3/8 of an inch has got to be cut right at the ground. So here's a few of those. We're going to just quickly get rid of them because you know what? If it's too small, if it's not going to grow a shoot that's any thicker than how thick it was, right? So we ended up with just a nice puny one, not a nice puny one, a puny, not nice one that grew out of this short stub. So it would have been better. It would have been better last year if I'd cut it right off. Instead of growing these 2 skinny ones, it might have grown 1 bigger one. So now I'm just going to go through here and I'm going to find all of these 2-year-old ones with the shoots and get rid of them. I'm going to look for nice primocanes. That's a 1-year-old. I'm going to leave 1, 2 nodes. And here's another one that's a 2-year-old. It's got 4 shoots out of it. It had its day last year, and this year we got to make space for new growth. So we'll get rid of that. Here's another old one. This one actually, the shoots, it died on its own. It's self-pruned, but we got to get it out of there because it gets messy. Here again is a nice, beautiful primocane. This one might leave it a little higher. And yep, here we see right beside that nice primocane that I pruned, we have an older branch. Get rid of the older branch. Right here, same deal. Here's an older branch. Here's a primocane, 1, 2 nodes. Now you could do 1, 2 nodes, or you could just go with a rule of thumb that's, 1 foot to 2 foot. A foot seems to work well for me. Before we get too far into this, I wanted to explain why I'm doing this. This nice primocane, it looks like it probably produced a cluster last year, but that cluster would have ripened several weeks later, 2 weeks later, than a shoot that originated, like this shoot here, which originated from last year's growth. So this is a technique to make your elderberry ripen earlier. And by encouraging the elderberries to produce new, strong primocanes like this that I can then cut down and have it have 4 or 6 shoots grow out of, that makes ripening occur earlier. So I want to encourage as many of these shoots growing out of 1-year-old wood as possible, because those are my best fruit producing shoots in a short growing season. And these here, sometimes they don't even, these primocanes, sometimes they don't even produce on their first year. Here's one that didn't, but you know what? I'm going to prune it off right there. Shoots, these kind of shoots are going to grow out of it and they're going to produce excellent fruit next year. Well, actually this year. If you don't prune, clusters will be frustratingly small. In a short season climate, if you prune by coppicing, your fruit will simply not ripen on time before winter. And if you prune to 1 to 2 feet, your berries will ripen 2 weeks earlier. That's a huge advantage. Canes older than 1 year simply aren't ideal, so cut them out. Leave just the primocanes if possible, and then shorten them down to 2 to 3 nodes. See here, we've shortened it to 2 nodes, and you got these beautiful shoots coming out of them. Here's a new primocane for next year. And those beautiful shoots, nice big flower clusters. Thinning is important. I find that in order to achieve the right balance, it's best to have about 5 canes with 4 buds on each for every 2 feet of row. And if you're pruning them higher and you leave about 6 buds, it's better to have 3 for every 2 feet. I find it's the total number of buds left that's what matters, not the number of canes. So Each bud will grow into one shoot, and I want about 18 to 20 buds for every 2 feet of row. That's enough to have a good crop, but also enough to encourage the plant to send up at least 5 new, strong, healthy primocanes, like that one that's being sent up right there. And that is how I do renewal pruning for American elderberry to optimize productivity in a short season climate. Check out my other videos, including how to prune elderberry for an extremely short season climate, and coming soon, how to prune European elderberry the European way.